Hello everybody. This is just a quick video to talk to you a little bit about some of the writing practice that we didn't get to cover in class today. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to start, not on that side, I'm going to start on prompt one and we're going to talk over this really quickly. I'm going to fill it out. You can follow along with me and you can practice on the back of this with the other prompt two, on your own so you can prepare for your in-class essay on Monday. I do apologize if I talk a little fast. I only have about 10 minutes, so let's see if I can get through this. You know that's not my strong suit. Okay, so working with the prompt, many works of literature deal with political or social issues. Choose a novel or play that focuses on a political or social issue. Then write an essay in which you analyze how the author uses literary elements to explore this issue and explain how the issue contributes to the meaning of the work as a whole. All right, so let's dive right in here and make some of our marks. I know that I'm talking about a political or social issue. I'm choosing some text. All right. I know that Young Goodman Brown is not a novel or a play, but we're going to handle that. Focuses on a political or social issue. They're repeating that, so I need to make sure that I definitely do that. Write an essay. Okay, that's the thing they want me to do. Like, that's a surprise. In which you analyze how the author, here we go, how the author uses literary elements. Ooh, wonder what they mean by literary elements to explore this issue and explain how the issue contributes to the meaning of the work as a whole. So we've talked about that already a little bit, and they just mean theme. So we're going to walk that down. So it's asking me to do two things. It wants me to do one and two. It wants me to discuss the literary elements and also explain how that idea contributes to the theme. So I've got two things that I need to do there. So it says do not merely summarize the plot. So it wants me to write an essay without summary. You can assume that the reader of your essay knows what you are talking about, which explains how the author uses literary elements to explore a social or political issue. I'm going to abbreviate just a little bit. So what's my thematic importance? I'm going to talk about social issues because political issues sound boring. So I'm going to talk about the importance of a social issue. I think I'm going to talk about Young Goodman Brown because I just know that piece really well. So I think the social issue that I'm going to talk about there is the importance of having having community. It's like a social connection. Humans are herd animals, so we sort of fall apart when we don't have a group. Okay, so I've got my things going on here. Now, it says literary elements. What literary elements can I talk about? Well, if I'm talking about Young Goodman Brown, I know I need to talk about tone, symbols, and then characterization, because those are the really big things for that piece. He's such a stick in the mud kind of arrogant character, and there's a lot of tone there, very grim, very dour, very serious, and then very like desperate sort of there at the end. And then of course we've talked about the symbols a lot. So the next part here is develop a thesis statement using the tag it or ICE method. I prefer tag it, so I'm going to go with that in that direction. Let me scoot here so that I'm not writing at a weird angle. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I know my title and my author and my genre, my tone words. I really like dour, and I like grim. Desperate is a good one too. So I'm going to say something like, in the dour short story, Young Goodman Brown. By Hawthorne. And you can phrase this, like you can flip these around. You can say in the dour, in Hawthorne's dour short story, Young Goodman Brown. You can do that as well. In fact, I probably would do that if I had the chance to start this over. I could do that. In Hawthorne's, I can do anything I want to do. In Hawthorne's dour short story, Young Goodman Brown. And then I can get rid of that phrase. Let's let's see, his use of symbols and characterization. So there's my literary elements, but I've got a tone word here, so that's a lit element, lit element, lit element. So use of symbols and characterization. Oh, I like emphasize just because it sounds like a big, like strong word. Emphasize the importance of social connection for an individual's happiness. Obviously because he doesn't belong to his community anymore, he's no longer happy. So I'm going on that idea that if you don't have a social connection, if you don't have a community, you're ultimately going to be unhappy and unfulfilled. It's sad, but there we are. So next part, now thinking about your thesis statement as your major claim for the essay, what are the 3 sub-claims you can make? And it's always good to have more than you need. So I think that I'm going to do this, but I think ultimately I would probably choose 2 to really double down on, or I would pick 1 and I'd combine the other 2. Usually when we talk about tone, tone finds itself smushed into another topic. So let's see how this goes. So I know that I need to write about the tone, the symbols, and the characterization. So let's start just by the order of operations in the thesis and start with tone. So the dour, and I like grim, so serious. The dour and grim tone throughout. So remember that you're talking about the entire piece. So you really consistently want to talk about beginning, middle, end. So the dour and grim tone throughout the text emphasizes or supports or illuminates or describes that being right and acting righteous does not result in happiness. He's such a stick in the mud, nasty person before. Like, he thinks that he's better than other people, and he talks down to his wife, and he's so condescending, and he's so just like blah. And then afterwards he comes back and he's worse. So he never finds that happiness. Being right doesn't make him happy. Being, righteous doesn't make him happy. So that you get that in that dour, grim tone sort of all throughout. Okay, the next thing I talk about is symbols. So I'm going to pick the ribbons and the town. So the ribbons and the lights, welcoming, organization, orderliness. I go with orderliness. I should spell it right. Ness of the town symbolizes the connection. That's the ribbons, connections, and overall goodness of a community. We've talked about his ribbons, the Faith's ribbons, and how sort of tenuous they are, and how those ribbons sort of tie him to his faith and his goodness, and he loses that faith and goodness as easily as untying a ribbon. And then the orderliness of the town, how it's laid out, and it's very clean, and it's very bright, and it's very warm and welcoming. It's that order and chaos kind of thing, as opposed to the woods. That really sort of emphasizes and symbolizes here just the good of a community. All right, so let's go with characterization here. So the character, I'm going to abbreviate because I'm running out of time, of Young Goodman Brown, you don't do that though, begins as an unmovable, does that have an E in it? Let's not go with one. Unmovable, rigid, individual, and becomes more so throughout, resulting in misery for everyone. He makes everyone miserable because he's such an unbendable individual. He has no forgiveness. He has no grace. He has none of those elements that he's supposed to have. Um, and so here's where you would take this sort of idea and go, okay, well, now what am I going to write? This is going to be this is your thesis right here. So then you would say, okay, can I mush the character part together and talk about tone and character in one element? I think you could easily do that. So then you'd write a paragraph about tone and character. Then you'd write a paragraph about symbols. And then you would write a conclusion and you would be done. But that's the order that you would do that in. All right, so if you flip over to the back really quickly, we've got another one right here. Critic Roland Barthes has said literature is a question minus the answer. Choose a novel, play, and considering Barthes' observations, write an essay in which you analyze a central question the work raises and the extent to which it offers answers. So this one is about like asking those big questions. We've heard in classes ontological questions, like those big questions about what is right, what is wrong, what is ethical, what is moral. And automatically I look at this prompt and I'm like, the ones who walk, boom, done. Like that's the one I would go with. But I think you could talk about Brown as well. You could talk about this in either of those ways. But you would want to say, how does the author's treatment of that question affect your feeling for the theme? So how is it that Le Guin's sort of like offhandedness and her detachment as she creates this town, how does that develop the sort of overall meaning of the work? That's the kind of thing they're looking at there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let you go. But again, if you need help or guidance, all you have to do is reach out. Bye, guys. Have a nice weekend.